What is SPIF? It's a big gathering of those who thrive during the plague, who feel comfortable and well-fed under fascism. And like any understand where SPIF even came from, like any doomed country, Russia is gravely afflicted with luxury. Luxurious. Luxury is all-powerful, and Russians are obsessed with it like, well, probably no other people in the world. For the sake of luxury, they are born. For the sake of luxury, they lie. For the sake of luxury, they steal, grovel, go to prison, betray, and are generally willing to endure anything. But of course, luxury must be flaunted and used to suffocate one another, to torment with their luxury everyone who hasn't reached its heights, who hasn't returned to the world of luxury. And for this very reason, in fact, the seemingly utterly pointless St. Petersburg International Economic Forum has been organized in recent years, because all its seminars, conferences, speakers, panels, these are just an excuse for mingling, showing off one's status, displaying the standard issue women at their side, and flaunting the social fat that drips from their shoulders. Because for signing contracts, for finding each other in the business world, this ridiculous gathering is really absolutely and completely unnecessary. Moreover, we know that real business, well, at least 80% of it should actually be conducted in complete silence. But this year, the SPIEF is, of course, especially pathetic. There's a lot of Putin, a lot of sycophancy, priests, and victory mania. Putin's medals are hanging everywhere. Statues of World War II are on display. Unknown fools are pontificating on the panels. And Taliban members are wandering around, bored as they wait for a menstruation show. Yes, they were promised a live demonstration, as stated in the event programs and schedule. I know it's hard to believe, but check out my Telegram channel. Those official programs are posted there. Well, that's the name of a certain group working in collaboration with Sber. So these are also Sber's periods. If you haven't seen them yet, you definitely need to take a look. But the only thing they didn't mess up, the only thing where they really shined, which is truly impressive, the problem of Ukrainian drones, has been solved brilliantly. To scare them off, Sobchak is marching along the pavilions of the International Forum. She somehow managed to get some hair on the cheap. Yes, and to be sure, she glued it to her head with BF glue. And as it turned out, it works much better than other air defense systems. And by the way, this passion for luxury was very skillfully used by the regime to keep the elite, the bohemians, the glamorous crowd, and the show business in line when the war began. Because for all of them, the fear of losing luxury is worse than death. Well, we understand that a certain tendency toward luxury, a craving for luxury, exists in other countries as well. I mean, in other civilized countries. But there, in those civilized countries, believe me, the right to luxury is very clearly differentiated. Who has the right to it and who does not? That is, titles, worldwide fame and or just local recognition always very clearly grant the right to what in Russia? Any traffic cop or minor showbiz. Nobody has the right and opportunity to enjoy. As for the forum, I won't go into detail because the speeches were, well, absurd, delusional, wildly ignorant, boastful, obsessed with victory. There was a lot of that. But there's no point in paying attention even to the most ridiculous and foolish things, since all the experts and speakers are such a shameful and utterly insignificant bunch. Well, there are some Sokolovs, Mishkins, Pishkins, Zalopishkins, faceless women, ridiculous girls screeching something about neurotechnologies, and the rest of the small fry shaking their fists and threatening to surpass Guinea-Bissau. And all of them, regardless of their ranks, titles, or names, are spouting the same tiresome nonsense. Because this entire little world presented at the MMEF is completely homogeneous. It has been nursed from the flabby breasts of Putin and Dugin, and the milk running down their chins is precisely of that origin. Well, look, I understand. Here's a simple example. Here is Artemy Lebedev. Artemy Lebedev is a designer. He became famous for giving himself a prolonged blowjob, which he gladly talked about on air. So he shook his blue curls and declared that Russia is so technologically advanced that it's already ready to fly to Mars, and that Russians are invincible because they've all read The Gingerbread Man. Let me remind you, The Gingerbread Man is the drama of a round-baked good that was made by hungry pensioners to comfort themselves in their difficult old age. However, the Gingerbread Man runs away from the pensioners, leaving the old folks hungry, and gets involved in very frivolous and complicated relationships with the bandits and oligarchs of the forest, like the bear, the wolf, and in the end, he's devoured by a cunning lady. The pensioners weep. But it's surprising that the Gingerbread Man hasn't yet taken Cheburashka's place, because Medinsky will surely listen to Lebedev and absolutely must write a screenplay about an unknown but heroic episode of World War II, the Gingerbread Man's last battle. And undoubtedly, the Gingerbread Man was one of the 28 Pamphilov heroes who once stopped a column of Hitler's tanks. All in all, I wouldn't be surprised if, as a result, a bust of the hero is erected in his homeland, the Gingerbread Man. But as for the hero's homeland and the supposed Russianness of this Gingerbread Man, I would say, well, that's what you call a mistake, because the Gingerbread Man has absolutely nothing to do with Russian fairy tales or with Russia at all. Sorry. It's old Uzbek ancient tales and sayings. And in Russia, when all of these appeared, it was already somewhere around the 18th century. And the first versions were actually called poskrebis, scratcher. Poskrebis was the name for, well, the last bread, the last bun made from scraps, crumbs, and whatever was left over. Well, anyway, it's clear, fine. Everyone is still at this forum, which is basically just a third world gathering, a place where tribes from the fringes of civilization can complain to each other about their hard lives and brag about a couple of stolen technologies. Obviously, everyone is waiting for the main event. No, well, to be fair, everything there is, fine, colorful, just like people have in Milan. Some kind of foam books flying around, neon lights, a fundamentally new range of air freshener scents in the restrooms. Let's just say the scent of the motherland. But everyone is waiting for the main moment because they know what's coming, the arrival of Putin. The internet will be cut off, the skies will be closed, snipers will peek out from every urinal, it will start to smell like a crypt, Peskov will croak 3 times, and then the appearance of the Kremlin ghoul will take place, who, well, will once again start playing his well-worn, familiar record. Well, the internet is already, of course, almost completely shut off throughout the city, as has been officially announced. And it must be said that this internet shutdown is an excellent seasoning for the sour cabbage soup that is the forum. Everything there, in general, is very, very rotten, long since devoid of any meaning. But fortunately, neither the regime nor the participants of the SPIEF themselves realize just how pathetic it all is. And everyone is overflowing with enthusiasm. And everyone feels great. You know, everyone there feels great. But really, this is a celebration of degradation, a festival of the plague. And to feel confident at such an event, you have to be a plague bacillus yourself. And only if this condition is met does a sense of satisfaction and comfort arise. And there, a lot of people are shifting around, sitting on their buttocks, changing positions, because of course, it's not very comfortable to sit on your own tongue that's been shoved up your ass. But that's a mandatory requirement for accreditation. But it's very difficult to find anything truly international at this forum. They tried to lure in some small Mexican drug cartel. They even tried to lure in the Indian Agori sect. They were offered, these are corpse eaters, they were offered a taste of the deadest economy in the world. But in fact, the Agori sniffed around a bit and reported that they specialized in corpses, not in rot. Well, of course, since there was no internet, everything was just wonderful. Bank cards didn't work, and the top economists from Cherepovets, the big shots from Ufa and Tambov, were munching on homemade sandwiches in the corners because it was impossible to pay at the register. So, in short, everything was very, very familiar. And now you can't even expect that the gems of years past will somehow repeat themselves. You remember, after all, the St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the place where the Kremlin's ideologue, the regime's ideologue Dugin, in a categorical manner from the Podiumdis, is documented. It's everywhere demanded the abolition of gravity throughout the entire territory of the Russian Federation, literally saying that we demand a ban on this vile Anglo-Saxon invention. And he also said then that in 5 centuries, science has created a civilization of nihilism. And that was the crime of Galileo, Newton, Francis Bacon. I sincerely regret, said Dugin, that all this scum was not burned in time at the blessed stakes of the Inquisition. Well, I mean, Dugin in general, he's afraid to go into the woods. He's convinced that honey mushrooms, for some reason, specifically honey mushrooms, are spying on him on behalf of the CIA. But at the same time, he regularly visits the Kremlin, where he consults the president of Russia on all the most important issues.